Hi, everybody. Welcome to Down to Earth with Terry Virts, where we talk about what matters on planet Earth. And today I've got a great guest. I've got Daniel Demsky. Dan is a CEO of Unbound Merino. It's an apparel company based in Canada that focuses on clothing made from merino wool. And he's also a longtime entrepreneur who started 3 other businesses. And I really want to talk about entrepreneurship and how to start a business. So Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really, really
Yeah.
cool to be here.
This is awesome. Well, I wish you were here. You're up in Canada, right?
I wish I was there too.
What it's been, you guys are in lockdown, eh?
Yeah, I think we've had one of the harshest lockdowns of anywhere in the world. I think I heard that restaurants have been shut for 320 plus days, and we've been on full lockdown since November with a
Oh
stay-at-home
my
order. So
gosh.
it's really, really harsh here, and it's really taking its toll on everyone. So,
That is unbelievable. Oh my gosh. I live in Texas and we've never really had a lockdown. Um, we've kind of, everything was open, at partial capacity and people just went out in their masks.
Yeah, I think the Texas Rangers had their home opener against the Blue Jays, our team. So it was on TV, and it was a full stadium.
Yeah.
I remember seeing clips of it and
Yeah.
rubbing my eyes.
Was
Is that a full stadium? Because we have nothing. Like our stadium, they're not even playing in our stadium.
oh,
So
yeah.
it's
Are you going
quite a
back to
different world.
Buffalo? Are they going back to Buffalo?
I think so. I think they're playing in Buffalo. I've been tuned completely out of sports since the law. I mean, to me, the sports is all about the energy. So
Right.
I just found I was really interested in seeing a basketball game when there's no audience, and I thought maybe you'd really be able to hear them trash talking each other and stuff like
Right.
that. They put that fake crowd noise and stuff, and it just seems like all the excitement was lost for me. So I've been completely tuned out. Except I was interested in seeing that full stadium in Texas because it was shocking to me, but also a glimpse of the glory days.
It's going to come back soon. I was at the opening day for the Astros here, and it's not full capacity, but there was tens of thousands of people. You got to wear a mask, and I can't tell you how happy I was. I love baseball, and just to be in the stadium. In fact, I went back. I've already been to 2 Astros games, and the season's only a few weeks old.
Wow!
Uh,
Count
we
your
all miss
blessings.
that.
Count your
Yeah.
blessings. That's exciting. You're very lucky.
Yeah, it's going to come back. Well, let's talk about starting a business because this is something I think you're pretty good at. You've done a few times. And actually, I'm wearing your shirt. I've got your Unbound Merino shirt on. It's awesome. I love it.
You look sharp. You look
Yeah,
good.
it's good. Well, I think you and I got connected because I was telling a story when I was in space. I wore this merino wool shirt and it was a payload. It was like an experiment because you don't have washing machines in space. You just wear the shirt until you're done with it and then you throw it away. And then normal, like polyester, Under Armour, Nike, or whatever shirt is great. I love those on Earth. They're wonderful, but you wear them once and they stink. I've talked to teachers and these 12-year-old boys come into class wearing their Under Armour shirt and they wear it day after day and they just stink. So that kind of thing is not good in space. And so this is an experiment C. And I wore
So
this shirt. I wore it every day for a month. I sweated, completely dripping sweat. And I didn't smell. After a month, it didn't smell. I was blown away.
So there's all sorts of different use cases for merino wool, which are very, very cool and fascinating for me. And when we started this company, I did a test where I wore our own shirt for 46 days and I put it through all the paces. I did a hot yoga class and a spin class. I let it air dry. I took it out to dinner, anything I could put it through just to test, is this for real? And even to this day, I still find it amazing. I should be used to it by now, but I'll sweat through the shirt, let it air dry. And then when it's dry, I smell it. It smells just as clean and fresh as the day I got it. And it's still astounding to me, but hearing about it being on the International Space Station is a much cooler story, and probably the coolest story I've heard of merino wool being put to the ultimate test. My hot yoga class was astounding to me, but this is just a much cooler story.
Well, so what is merino wool? I'm
Well,
not a fabric expert.
There's no technology behind it. It's just the wool itself. Now, the merino sheep, they have a natural coating on the fibers of their wool called lanolin. And lanolin, what it prevents from happening is moisture from being absorbed into the shirt. So if you wear a cotton shirt and go for a run and you sweat, your sweat is absorbing into the material, and the bacteria is being full. It becomes a breeding ground for bacteria. But because of that lanolin coating, it just wicks moisture away, and it never gives it the opportunity to absorb and to breed that bacteria. And the bacteria is what causes smell. So it's always wicking away moisture, and that's really all it is. So it's just taking all of the it's like a nature's miracle fabric. It's not like, like Under Armour, where some human ingenuity created something which has some kind of performance. It's just the wool itself. So it's not like we invented anything that didn't already exist. It's just nature's performance fiber.
That's amazing. I never heard of it until they gave me this shirt and said, "Hey, try this thing out." And I wasn't supposed to wear it for a month, but I was wearing it, and I'm like, "This thing's pretty good." And so I just wanted to see how long I could wear it for.
Yeah.
And then I did that again. So like a few months later, I got a different shirt and wore it for a month, and it was amazing. So where do you find these merino wool or these merino sheep?
They're all in Australia and New Zealand. So that's where all the fabric comes from. And it's knit all over the world, but that's where the fabric. And there used to be some in the States, but there hasn't been merino sheep in the States for a very, very long time.
Are they just like normal sheep? Just like a big
Sort
hairy
of.
sheep that you shave?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of the same idea. They look a little bit different. They're kind of cute, but they got these big coats. And the Australian wool farmers they're amazing people. I had a chance to meet a few when I went to ISPO, which was a trade show in Munich, Germany, and the love that they have for the sheep. It's actually kind of beautiful. They have these big herds of sheep, and they're the love they have for the sheep is endearing to me, because I'm a big animal lover, and I'm it's very important for me that there's no cruelty to the animals.
Right.
If you meet these wool farmers, you'll see like this. It's like a family. They love their sheep.
They love their sheep.
And it's also just a really, really sustainable material. I mean, by every stretch of the imagination, it's kind of the best material there is, like in terms of performance, in terms of, sustainability factors, there's no animal cruelty, it's biodegradable. So people have slowly started to discover merino wool, but it hasn't really hit its peak in popularity. And it's kind of a little bit mysterious, but I think it's just because people think of wool and they think, what? You're gonna wear a t-shirt made out of wool? Like, that sounds itchy, or it sounds like it doesn't make sense, but you're wearing it. It feels closer to cotton than it does to what you would perceive as wool, like
it's really smooth. I was blown away when they said, "Hey, can you wear this wool in space?" I was like, wool? I'm going to be scratching myself the whole time. So I ordered a double XL and I'm not, I'm not small, but I'm not double XL, but I just wanted the loose shirt, but it wasn't a problem at all. I never felt that it kind of blew me away.
Yeah.
I've had wool, hats and sweaters and over the years, but it's not like that at all.
You're expecting an itchy scarf or or a big
like scratching
fuzzy wool sweater. It's like, that doesn't make sense for a t-shirt or a base layer. But the merino wool is just super fine. It was amazing. The actual fabric is more like a cotton.
So when I lived in Germany, we kind of lived in this farming area, and there's a herd of sheep there. The shepherd would take them out and the dog would run around and herd them. It was really cool. The sheep were really cool animals, but they get so, they grow their hair or whatever. I'm not sure how you call that, but like, how often do they get shaved? How many crops of wool is it every month or once a year, or how often does that happen?
I believe the merino fleece is sheared yearly. Now, I might be wrong on this, and if I am, I should know. Right. I should know, but I believe it's yearly, and it's very important that it's done yearly, because that stuff can really it doesn't stop growing.
Right. Otherwise, they're gonna you fall over, and
it's actually a real problem if they're not sheared regularly. I mean, the amount of weight that they're carrying is one thing, but also, you know, they defecate in their own wool and they get fly strike, and it's a real problem. So it has to be done, and they have to be cared for. They really have to be. Yeah.
So how did you get into this? Like, is clothing, you've started multiple businesses. So are they always clothing businesses or?
No, I had almost no place to get into the clothing business. We had no idea what we were doing when we started. It was born out of a need. I mean, I had a video production agency. We were doing pretty well. You know, we had big clients. When I started that out, it was a really, really exciting path to growth, and I really enjoyed doing it. But over time, I really stopped enjoying what I was doing. I felt almost like a prisoner to my own business. And I had this idea in the back of my head. I want to create a new business, and I don't want to be in the services business anymore. I don't want to go because when you're in the services business, you're only as successful as your last client.
Right.
So closing deals, and you get to close a big deal and then another big deal. But if the well dries up a bit, you have some serious problem ahead of you. You'll have some cash flow issues that are just around the corner. So I felt like I was always on the hunt. I was never really good at hiring salespeople. And after years and years of doing this, and just the excitement was gone. So I had this idea in the back of my head. I want to create a business, and I want it to be a product business. I want customers, not clients. And that was it. I don't know what this business is going to be. I just know I want to create a business one day and try to start something new. So about every couple of weeks, I'd meet up with my two best buds who are my business partners, and we'd have a chalkboard or a scrap piece of paper or a whiteboard, and we'd just start shooting ideas at the wall. And we probably came up with just endless amount of terrible ideas, maybe some good ideas, but we just kept trying, and we kept our sights set on it. But the whole merino wool thing came when it was born out of a need. I was traveling with then my girlfriend, and we went to a place called Hydra, Greece, which, you know, there's no roads. So because there's no roads, there's no cars, and it's sort of up on this bay with this big hill, and our hotel was sort of up on the top of the hill. Now, of course, we packed so much stuff with us. She packed a whole lot more stuff than I did. So she had a big suitcase and I had a medium suitcase. And the only way to get your stuff up to the hotel would be either you schlep it up yourself, or there's these donkeys, and you can pay for a donkey and they'll load it on the donkey and take it out. And I'm like, I'm not paying for a donkey. I'll carry this stuff. Of course, I'm carrying her suitcase. I'm carrying my suitcase. And I start walking up these steps, and we get up to the hotel room. I remember it was a beautiful, little, awesome hotel, but I throw the suitcases on the bed, and we open it up. And when we open up the suitcase, I'm looking at all the stuff. I'm like, did you wear that? Did you wear that? I looked at my stuff. I'm like, I didn't wear that. I'm like, there has to be a better way.
Right.
So we made a deal that the next time we would travel, we'd do carry-ons, no matter what we were traveling with. So I started Googling how to travel overseas with just a carry-on. And I came across a Reddit post where someone said, when I travel, I bring merino wool because it's antibacterial and it's odor resistant. So, you know, if you're going away for 2 weeks, you don't need 14 t-shirts. You can bring two. So you can re-wear a t-shirt and you can have less stuff. And I thought, that's amazing. So where I live in Toronto, I'm right by all the outfitter stores. You know, I have, and this is where they sell merino wool. So I went and I found merino wool shirts, and I liked them. You know, the material was amazing. It performed as promised, but the industry was set up. They were creating a lot of stuff that was like more for outdoors, active wear kind of stuff. And I remember we went to Hong Kong and around Thailand and China, and it was this long trip. I remember being in this cocktail bar, and I remember walking in there and feeling sort of out of place. And I felt out of place because the shirt I was wearing it had a reflective logo on it, and it looked like it was, you know, maybe if I was going for a cycling ride or something, or going for a jog, it would be perfect. But like for being in a cocktail bar, like I couldn't really, you know, put on a nice pair of pants and feel like I was like appropriate for going out. I felt a little awkward. And then I remember looking at the pictures and thinking, yeah, I look out of place. So I started thinking, like, why don't people make more simple, stylish, more versatile stuff using this fabric? And I began looking for it. And I looked all over and I just couldn't find anything that wasn't more of an outdoors kind of brand thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking, oh man, like maybe this is the idea. Maybe if I want it, like if I found Unbound Merino, a brand just like this at that time, I wouldn't have gone and created it because there would be no need.
Right.
I was just looking for it. And I thought,
Right.
this seems like a good idea. Like if I want it so bad, maybe I can be the one to bring it to market. So I went to a business coach friend of mine who I really, really value his opinion. And I gave him the whole spiel. And I said, this is my idea. And it's merino wool and blah, blah, blah. And he said, Dan, I love it. I think this is a great idea. He's like, but you're not the guy to do it. And I was like, what? And he said, between, you're running your other business. I left this part of the story out because it's a little detail, but I was trying to start a little funky sock company because funky socks are becoming popular. So
Right.
I had this little side project sock company. I had my main business. And now I'm coming up with this third idea because I think that it's just such good timing and I should do this. And he said, but you're not the guy to do it because you're spread out so thin. Like your performance in your main business is poor because you're splitting your time with the saw company. And now you want to add a third, you're going to do everything poorly. And he was right. He was right in the sense that I was so tired. I mean, if you look at pictures of me from that time in my life, you could see in my face.
Bags. And,
Yeah, I was just like I was just ghostly. I
Right.
had an extra 25 pounds on me.
Right.
I just like nothing in my life was like clockwork. I was just tired and worn out, and I was tired of my other business, and I was trying to make something else work. But I remember going to bed that night and feeling like, look, I have no problem sleeping, Terry. I can hit the pillow and I'm out.
Yeah.
Like a sack of potatoes, I am out. But I
Right.
was wide-eyed laying on my pillow thinking like, I have to do it. Like, I know that this is a good idea. But look, I didn't have the capital to do it. I didn't have the time to do it. I didn't have the energy to do it. And I had no idea how to make clothing.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to
Other than that, you were ready.
Other than that, I knew I had to do it. I just knew I need to find a way.
Right.
So I sat there thinking, and I thought, well, this Kickstarter, I wouldn't end up doing Kickstarter, but I did a crowdfunding campaign. I mean, what if we did a crowdfunding campaign? Because that would solve all of the challenges and objections. First of all, I can work on the crowdfunding campaign completely on the sidelines. Let's just say we did it once a week. I could piece it together. We can go find a manufacturer, can learn how to do this. And once I get it together, all it is a pitch. And the pitch would do a couple things. People would watch my crowdfunding campaign and they'd say, this is a good idea. And if they think it's a good enough idea, they can vote with their wallet. They can buy our product as a pre-order. And that would not only give us the capital to start the business and get our inventory, it would also just validate whether or not we had product market fit. So I was a kid who grew up, for whatever reason, watching infomercials. I loved watching. I loved it. I loved watching the George Foreman grill, or I didn't care, the food dehydrator, hair in a can, you name it. I thought they were so entertaining. And I realized halfway through doing this crowdfunding campaign that crowdfunding campaigns are just like, they're like millennial infomercials. Mm-hmm. I was making an infomercial. I was pitching this product with this value proposition.
Right.
And we put our heart and soul into this because we wanted it to work so bad to validate this idea. But I thought, if it doesn't work, at least I tried.
Yeah.
And worst case scenario is I made a bunch of prototypes of the clothing I wanted to exist anyway. So I'll have a few boxes of clothing.
Right.
That's it. That would be my consolation prize. So we tried to sell $30,000 in pre-orders, and we did 400,000. And that was in our first 2 months. So that was it. We had no investors. We had no money. That was it. It was all pre-orders. That validated the idea. And I walked away from my other business that day, went all in on this, and we've been growing ever since. And we've now sold in over 100 countries, and it's continuing to grow. So it's been a fun ride, and I'm really, really I feel like I'm finally authentically in the right place, doing something I really believe in.
In your zone, yeah.
In the zone.
When was that? When did all this happen?
That was the crowdfunding campaign was in the summer of 2016.
Wow. Only less than 5 years.
Yep. We launched our web store in December of 2016. So it will be 5 years at the end of this year since we've been online.
4.5 years. That's amazing. That's the great American success story, except for
Yeah.
you're Canadian.
Yeah, we're living the great American success story up here on America's hat.
So do you do the manufacturing in Canada then?
We split our manufacturing here. We do a lot in Canada, and we do a lot in China as well.
So you had to go to China and find partners and all that.
Yes, as we were looking for our suppliers, I looked around Canada, I looked around the States, looked in China, and we had a big set of criteria of what would make it work. And sometimes we get criticism. People say, "You make in China." There's more so today than ever. There's a growing xenophobia,
right?
Where people say, and now I have my own opinions on that. I think it's important to separate. My vantage point is I go to China and I see where these are manufactured, and they're just real businesses, just like you'd find here or in the States.
Right.
I'm very close to their suppliers. One of the fears I had, and I sometimes wonder, like, how much of the propaganda machine am I on the other end, where I was so afraid that if we make stuff in China, it's going to be made by children. This is thoughts I had. I was very afraid of that. So in order for us to feel good about where we're manufacturing, we made sure that we went to our factories and we had a personal connection with them. We saw what was happening on the factory floors. And I kind of love visiting our factory. I go there and I'm like, it's just kind of, it's still a factory. It's still factory work that's largely happening there, cutting and sewing t-shirts and things like that. But aside from that, it sort of has this Googleplex vibe. Like there's basketball courts, they all break together and eat lunch together. And once I went there, I saw the humanity in it. And I know there's criticisms of the Chinese government. Chinese people might have criticism of the American government, and the governments and the people are different.
Yes, absolutely.
And I feel like I'm just working with people. In fact, I love the manufacturing in China, and we're not manufacturing there to save money, because when you factor in all of the import duties that come into the States or Canada, all of the brokerage fees, all that stuff, it's actually not really that much cheaper. It's marginally cheaper, but we're not doing it to save money. It's just the quality of manufacturing in China is really hard to beat. And that's what people don't realize. They think, oh, it's cheap, it's made in China. I'm like, there's a reason why your iPhone was made in China.
Right.
It's like they've for decades invested enormous sums of money into the manufacturing process, and they're just better at it. Like I've seen some really, really serious operations there, making socks and shoes, and it's so state of the art. It's like, it's not kids making stuff. It's really state of the art manufacturing. It's unbelievable to see.
Yeah.
I kind of, there's a part of me that just like, I miss China. This lockdown, of all the places I miss China so much, because, I have a lot of deep connections there and good friends there now. But yeah, I was talking about the xenophobia. We get that a lot, people on our Facebook posts. There's a lot of trolls on Facebook. I don't know if you read stuff that you post, and
I try not to. I post something, and and then if I get a lot of hate, I won't delete it. I'm like, it is what it is, and take it or leave it.
You get the flat earthers coming after you.
Oh God, I get the flat earthers. We're pretty sure it was a Russian hacker that created a Terry Virts lookalike account during the election, and they were posting all this crazy stuff. Finally, Twitter took it down. It took them a month. There's another guy now impersonating me, reaching out to people, stalking women and stuff. So social media is dangerous, and it's just, and it kind of turns into this hate factory, especially Twitter. It seems like people get tired of that. They just want something fun or positive or interesting, or, so it's, I do it because it's a way to communicate with folks, but you also have to take it with a grain of salt. Cause if anybody looks at your post and goes, oh, that's nice, they're just going to go on to the next post. They're not going to say anything about it. So it's only usually
extremes.
Kind of the extremes that are going to say something about it.
Yeah.
So
super fans and super trolls,
super haters. Yeah. Exactly.
So you're telling me the earth is not flat, right?
If the earth was flat, I'd still be flying to the east at 17,000 miles an hour. Thankfully it's round and I was able to come back around and land. Yeah, I mean, the Greeks had this figured out a few millennia ago. So that's a whole different discussion about the kind of the disbelief in science and all the conspiracy theories out there and stuff. But where in China is your factory?
There's two places, Jiaxing and Wuxi, which are about a 30-minute train ride out of Shanghai. So I'll usually stay in Shanghai and commute. They say, why don't you stay in the factory town? And I'm like, no thanks. It's 30
I'd rather
minutes.
Stay in Shanghai.
Stay in Shanghai. It's such a cool city, but it's interesting. It's a 30-minute train ride. Sounds like it's close, but these trains go 400 kilometers an hour.
Wow.
So it's actually really far.
Right.
But it's just a really quick train ride. It's super smooth and you're going like a bullet.
Yeah.
It's great.
China is amazing. I went there 5 times in 2018 and it really blew me away about how modern, you hear this term developing nations. China is developed past tense, like Korea is developed. A lot of these countries are way more modern than we are. And it's a reality I think that folks need to understand. And like you said,
have you been to Shanghai?
I've been to Beijing, Shenzhen, Tianjin, a lot of other places. I've never been to Shanghai.
So the main area, when you think of Shanghai or you see postcards of Shanghai, you see that sort of futuristic looking.
Yeah.
That was all farms 30 years ago. And on one side of it, you might think you're in London, England. Like it's all old. I mean, they have a big British concession there, and it's just like real old. There's old French buildings and old English buildings. It literally looks like you're in London, England on one side of that river. And then the other side that used to be farms, it looks like aliens came and built a future world.
Right.
And it is the coolest thing to stand on that river and look on one side and see like historic London, England looking kind of city, and the other side looks like it's the future. And it's just a mind-blowing place, and there's so much happening. I really love it. I miss being there.
Yeah, I know. I really miss it too. I was supposed to go to Hong Kong in August of 2019, which was when the protests started. And so that trip, I was in Thailand, literally, I had to change my ticket to come back to the States because it got canceled. And, the way things have gone now, I don't know if it's I'm not sure what's going to happen. A friend of mine I love it how you separated government from people, because, like I love Russia. I love the people there. I love the culture. I love the food. I love.
You speak Russian, right?
What's that?
You speak Russian, right?
I do. Yeah. I had to. I flew into space on a Russian rocket.
Right.
I've got a model of it. There's a Soyuz model. I don't know if you can see it.
That's what it's called, right? Yeah.
It's in the corner. So, there's the people and then there's governments, and they're not always the same. A friend of mine she's Australian, but she's a journalist for the Chinese national network, CGTN. She just got arrested, no charges. She's disappeared from the world for 9 months. I was just talking to another person this morning. I'm going to have him on the podcast. Amazing story. He's a Uyghur refugee over 10 years ago, escaped from China. So, people are people, and then governments are governments, and you kind of have to separate them. But
there's a lot of the xenophobia comes from not having exposure to the humanity that people like. The more you travel, the less judgment you have of other cultures. Like when I go to China, one of our main suppliers, I went to her sister's wedding. So I'm going to the wedding, I'm meeting with people, they're so happy to see, and they're just like, these are just like joyous people that are having one of the best days of their lives, watching their family get married. And it's just like, It's like, I mean, the only thing that's different is the food, which was very different than what I'm used to at a wedding. But you can't think down on them at all. You're just seeing people that just love just like you do and your family does. And it almost offends me when people criticize China so harshly, but then I realize there are things to consider, to criticize rather. it has nothing to do with the people. It has to do with governments. But like,
Yeah.
we're talking about 1 billion people living under one government, and that you're criticizing the people who are the government, not the billion people who are just families.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. I think one of the things that would make the world a much better place is if every kid did an exchange. When I was in high school, I went to Finland. I lived in Finland, and I got a letter said you're going to Finland. It was with AFS, this organization called AFS. I didn't know where Finland was. I had to run inside and get the map out and look. All right, where's Finland? But it was awesome. It was the most amazing experience. And I lived on the Soviet border. It was 1984, and so literally we lived on a lake, and there was these buoys in the middle of the lake, and then there was a guard tower, and that was the Soviet Union, just like a couple miles away. And if every kid did that, think about that. Imagine if every 16-year-old on Earth went and lived overseas, it would be a much better country. That's kind of one of my visions, one of my goals in life. I don't know how to make that happen, but that would be a pretty cool thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things I'm really grateful for being brought up in Toronto for, is we're so multicultural that it wasn't like, I was never in a class in school where being a white kid, I was the majority, but I was never a minority. It was just too much of a mix to figure out what was the majority. There was tons of Russian kids, Jewish kids, Jamaican kids, Chinese, Japanese, it's just like a melting pot of different people. And, I got exposed to all the different food really. So I guess I take it for granted. I actually have a friend, you for sure know Chris Hadfield.
Yeah.
So his son, he's a buddy of mine. He lives here in the city, and he's obviously had to live all around the world because because of, his dad being on military bases and stuff like that. So he's lived in Russia and China, and I think his experience is very, very interesting, because it's not just visiting. Like when I go to China, I could also have to take it for a grain of salt that I have this white person who's a tourist vantage point from going to China. I'm probably not seeing everything, but that's everywhere I go. Right. But with him, he spent a couple of years in so many different spots.
Right.
And something he said to me that I think is the most proud I'm not proud of where I'm from in any sense, because I think it's like, oh, well, we're great, Canada's awesome. But something he said did make me feel that was, of all, if there's anything he loves about Toronto, is it has to be the least racist place. He's like, not that racism doesn't exist, it's just that we're so used to each other that it's of anywhere I've been, there's an undertone of it, an undertone. He feels it at times. He's and that is something that only comes from exposure to other people, because once you can think the most xenophobic, racist, whatever thoughts you have of someone, if you spent 2 days with their family, that's gone. I'm convinced.
That's why I think kids need to do these exchanges. I mean,
that's a great idea.
I don't like the way we talk about it. Every tribe is racist. Like every tribe in the world, it doesn't matter what country you think, you just want to be, you think you're better than the other guys or whatever. It's a universal problem that every country has. In a little village in a farm in Norway, they're going to look down on people from the other village on the other side of Norway, right? It's just it's a human thing, unless you have connection with other people. Like you said, if you travel abroad, if you live abroad, if you live in a city like Toronto where there's people from all over the place, and then once you realize that, hey, people are people, that's a really good thing. That's a powerful thing. And I think that's the hope. That's how you get past these problems. The world is having some really serious problems. There's a major, in my mind, probably the biggest problem we're facing is, do we choose authoritarianism or do we choose democracy? And countries like China are saying, look, we handle the virus better. We got it under control, and the democracies are having a mess, and we're better. But the thing about China is there's no First Amendment. There's no freedom of speech. There's no freedom of press. There's no freedom of religion. There's no freedom of anything. It's only what the party decides to give you. And I think we need to figure out how to get that problem solved, because It's kind of like the world needs to choose between authoritarianism or democracy. That's my view of the world anyway.
Yeah, I agree. We need to figure it out. If I would even begin to try to have an opinion on how you get there, I'm like, I don't know. I'm just gonna, stay in my corner and hope no one bothers me.
No. I think what you're doing is exactly. I think business, to be honest, governments don't always make the right decision, but I think businesses, if you can make a profitable business that provides people with jobs. How many people work for your company?
There's 10 that work in the business and about 10 that are on a contract. So, 10 to 20.
And the manufacturing people also.
Oh, the manufacturing it's all contracted out. So
right.
There's, that's not our employees, but
right. But it's still
large amounts of
they have jobs because of
absolutely.
Right. So there's, tens of people that provide for their families because of what you're doing. And they have freedom to like have a life, right? If there wasn't your business, they wouldn't be able to do that. So I just think business has a big role in making life better for people on Earth.
Yeah, and businesses are almost like their own little societies. The cultures are created in companies, and you can have I'll tell you a really cool story. We have this is not going to sound good to the xenophobic people, but we had an illegal that worked for us. Mm-hmm. Now, we didn't have him work for us because we were it was a job that no one else wanted to do, or because we're underpaying. We paid him. He's one of the higher paid people, but when we were starting up, he was helping us. And the reason why he was an illegal is because he came here on a student visa from India. And he was told to file for a refugee claim to get his citizenship, which was not what he should have done because he was not a refugee, but he was listening to his uncle and he got tied into this whole thing. He ended up being here illegally. And now we employ in the same way. I'm like, I know this guy from another company. I'm just giving him some work. But once we started to grow as a company, I said, like, listen, we can't keep you employed illegally forever. Like, this worked for, when we're starting in a little warehouse, getting this thing started up, but you're such an integral part of our company. He's done so much to help us grow. He's literally the first person we hired. And we took it on ourselves to try to figure out his legal matters. So we hired an immigration lawyer and, put through. Now, I'm bringing this up because I just found out yesterday, he just got approved for his permanent residence to become legal in Canada.
Oh, wow.
But
excellent.
That was like one of the things that we got to do as a company that we got to take on to, into our own laps to take lead on. But he's a part of our family, and we look after each other, and we built a culture together. So this company, like, even though there's just 10 of us here, we're like our own little world with our own rules, our own values. And it's like separate from everywhere else. And it's like, and also we're creating a product that gives value in its own way. So I feel like creating a business is like creating a baby country. It's like your own little constitution, your own little core value set. And like, it is, in a sense, like the ultimate freedom. But we also, selling in over 100 countries, like who we are as a brand and what we stand for, we're not Google. We don't have that kind of mass culture influence, but in our own little subset, we have influence, and it's a beautiful little freedom to have.
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, businesses can do that, and they kind of drive the world in a good way or a bad way. It's not like all businesses are angels, but I think that I have hope for that, and they can make decisions quicker, and they're not encumbered by these sometimes government kind of processes and situations. Mm-hmm. So that what a cool, I bet you that guy's a pretty good employee after you've done what you've done for him.
Yeah, well, he's always been good to us.
Right.
And that's why we felt a sense of duty to try to we had the ability and power and connections. Like, I went to my brother's, he's a really successful lawyer. I'm like, I need you to find me like literally the best immigration lawyer you could find. So we put in some dough to support him, because it's like, he's given so much to us that it's like, let's give back. And yesterday was sometimes I'm like, okay, well, we're selling t-shirts, and I really believe in what we sell, and I love what we sell. But sometimes people have these bigger humanitarian causes, but it's moments like where I could see what we create in our own little world that makes me feel the best about what we do. Like we're not just creating jobs, we're creating jobs where we pay really well, and we give a lot of autonomy, and we give a lot of purpose, and we really stand behind what we're doing. But it was moments like yesterday when I got that phone call from him and I heard his voice where I'm like, this is one of the best reasons why I do what I do. Like we had the ability to, just one guy, but he said, like, I feel like I'm dreaming. Like I can't believe I actually given up hope on this. And now I'm going to become a permanent resident. So it's moments like that where like, it just fills me with joy, fills me with purpose. And that's sort of what we're creating. Like Unbound Merino is a product, and we give value through our products, and we have a mission and core values that are outward from our company. But like what happens inward is like on us to create. It's our own little world, and it's really one of the most fun things to do.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm hoping to do an energy company startup, but one of the things that I really want to do with the company is provide jobs to the community, and the idea of that is kind of one of the motivators for what we're trying to do. So you've started several other companies, and I just want to talk about entrepreneurship. Like, how do you start a company? Most people don't have the money to start a company.
Neither did I.
Yeah, I know. Neither do I, for sure.
Yeah. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the energy. I told you this story.
Right.
I couldn't even motivate myself to working out, but I had this idea.
Right.
There's always a way to start. And now it's easier than ever. I mean, to start a clothing business and sell in 100 countries and to have that sort of kind of distribution, to have like the ability to acquire new customers the way we do. If we want to go back 20 years, you have to have millions and millions and millions of dollars just to start the idea of that. Mm-hmm. Like we had, do you know how much we put in to start this company of our own cash before the crowdfunding? Less than $2,000. So, that was just for postage and like sample costs and stuff like that. Just sort of making our initial prototypes and like a couple like graphic design things and things like that. I say this because if we could start this company and sell in as many countries as we do, anyone can if they have the will. I mean, you just need an internet connection. Like and a good idea. The most important thing is I think the most important thing is a really, really strong value proposition. Like it's something that your customer, the promise you make to your customer post-purchase. So in our case with the clothing, we really focused on the travel thing, which worked wonderfully for us until there was a global travel ban. Right. But our promise to the customer was with Unbound Merino, you can pack less stuff.
Yes.
And that was it. That was the promise. That was the value proposition. So it was a tool to have people pack lighter. So people that were older that didn't want to carry heavy bags, it appealed to them. People who are business travelers that didn't want to have to check luggage and waste time waiting at the luggage carousel, appealed to them. But I think that's all you need. Everything else you can figure out. Money you could find through crowdfunding, through an investor. You don't need your own money. You don't need distribution. You don't need connections. You don't need pre-existing customers. I think the only thing you need is a good value proposition, and you could start a business.
Right. That really stood out to me. And the other thing was you looked around and you didn't see anybody else doing it. If you got the good idea, if you find a market need that's not being met, like you mentioned iPhones, these things, nobody knew they needed an iPhone in 2000 or 2005, right? It wasn't until 2010, whenever they started making them, Apple said, you guys, they came up with something that they knew we needed, but we didn't know we needed. And so
Steve Jobs is like the Michael Jordan of value proposition. Like he is like he is the
Michael Jordan or Wayne Gretzky. You're a Canadian.
Yeah. I don't know. I like basketball more than hockey. I grew up in Toronto. The Leafs are an insufferable, horrible team. It made me hate hockey.
Raptors have been good.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a whole other discussion. But if the Maple Leafs and the Raptors played in the same venue, When you go to a Raptors game, from the second you walk in till the second you leave, that is an event. It's like there's flames, there's music, there's lighting. You walk
I've been
into
to a
a
Raptors game.
In Toronto?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's a fun
yeah.
time. Leafs?
Yeah.
Have you been to a Leaf game?
I have not.
That is, you wouldn't even remember if you did. It is a snoozer. It is so corporate. It is so boring. I went to the home opener, the last home opener they had here, and I thought, man, this is going to be crazy. This because people love the Leafs here, but yeah, it could not have been more of a stale environment. So growing up in that, I'm like, I just can't like hockey because I just didn't have a home, like a team to be proud of. I mean, first of all, they don't ever win.
Yeah.
Tickets are so expensive and no one there cares about the team. It's just a bunch of corporate rich guys who just sit there to like,
drinking and talking. Yeah.
Talk business and show off that they have Leaf tickets. It's not like fans, the fans are in the bars.
Yeah.
So,
well, I need to come to a Blue Jays game. I'm a baseball guy and I've seen this. I've driven past the stadium 100 times. I've just never gone to a game there.
Yeah. I think it's like in the bottom 3 ranked stadiums in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
I heard someone describe it as like, this is like what in the late 80s, early 90s, what the vision of the future would be. That was horribly wrong.
Right. It seems
kind of like an Epcot Center
place.
sort of. Yeah. It's just like very sterile,
Yeah. Artificial turf.
Yeah. I went to a game at Wrigley. And that was just like, this is what baseball's for. Like, this is the right vibe.
Yeah.
It's just like, it just had that history. I went to Fenway. There was just like a different energy there. It was just Skydome Rogers Center. It doesn't quite have it. I hope that
there's something
in the ballpark.
There's something, like you said, there's something about being together in a stadium that's so awesome that I miss. Going to that Astros game last week, it was so nice. Like, I can't tell you how happy I was. I was by myself. I was just sitting there watching the game, but it was awesome.
Yeah, that sounds. I mean, as much as I talk, how boring the Leafs are and our ballpark is sterile, I would be quite happy to go to even a Leaf game right now. I'd take it. I love it. I'd get like a overpriced beer and a hot dog, and I'd feel like the happiest person in the world.
Exactly. So you've done multiple companies. You come up with this idea. The crowdfunding thing is an amazing way to get capital, because in the old days you had to know somebody, you had a rich uncle, or you'd have to go through the VC route, which is expensive and painful. And nowadays you can do a crowdfunding. Of course, if you do it badly, it probably doesn't go well. I'm sure there's been a lot of crowdfunding failures, but there's been a lot of successes too.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's just a matter of, can you convince people that you have a good product and can you deliver it, and will people actually buy it? And it's a lot of work. It wasn't a small job. It wasn't easy to go and start this business and launch the crowdfunding campaign. It took us 1.5 years to do. Right. But we did it 1.5 years on the sidelines of all the other work that we had to do and working on our
full-time job. Right.
So we were able to meet up on Friday nights. And that was because one of my partners, he had 2 little ones. At the time they were much younger, and he had to wait to put the kids to bed. So we would meet up on Friday night when his kids were put to bed, and we'd work until we were gassed or we had too much whiskey and we weren't productive anymore.
Right.
It was fun. Like, that's what we did for 1.5 years. Every Friday we knew that we could meet up, and I got to meet up with my 2 best friends. And instead of going to a bar and having beers, we went to Dima's place and we sat at his table and we had some nice whiskey. We worked on things. By the end of the night, we gave each other homework for the next week, just a little stuff we could do on the side. And after 1.5 years of meeting up and hanging out and going through this, whole experience, where we found manufacturers, we came up with a brand position, we tried on samples, all the stuff, all the homework. It was go time when the campaign was there, but we were so prepared for it. And yeah, it was really about finding that product market fit, coming up with that value proposition. And, I really, really wanted it to work. So we left no stone unturned to, if it didn't work, I knew, I felt I tried everything. I read everything I could find about crowdfunding. I asked everyone I was connected to that's ever known anyone or did a crowdfunding campaign for all the advice. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
especially on the side of everything else. But, you know, we were able to put it together. And, you know, like you were saying, you know, used to have to know someone, have money, etc. The barrier to entry is way lower now, but that doesn't undermine the thinking that's required and the effort that's required.
Right. Exactly. At the end of the day, you got to have a good product too. I mean, you can do all the marketing and crowdfunding, but unless you have a real thing. How long does a crowdfunding campaign last? Is that like a month or 2 months or?
It's a month usually, but you're able to extend it. So we did a 30-day thing. And then at the end of it, we'd extended it for another 30 days because we were able to. So 60 days.
Yeah, there's a French telescope company called Vaunus, and I did some work for them. And they just raised a lot of money on their crowdfunding campaign to build these new types of telescopes. Another friend of mine he's making compostable plastic bags. It's kind of an amazing thing. And I helped him, and the crowdfunding really lets you take good ideas and make them happen in ways that didn't used to happen. It's kind of like everything in life is getting democratized, and starting a business is one of those things, which is pretty awesome.
I think there's no better time to be an entrepreneur or a musician, or, you know, I
agree.
There's certain things where the barrier to entry is just completely lowered.
It's gone. Yeah. So is this it? Are you done? Is this your retirement job? I have a feeling no, but
no, you know, I have an endless amount of ideas, but I don't know, like, I don't have any desire to jump ship from this yet. Like there's so, like, I can see the next at least 5 years and me completely enjoying, you know, continuing to grow it, because what I find is that the bigger we get, the more, you know, we're relatively small buyers in the grand scheme of things compared to large brands, you know, compared to we're not an Under Armour, we're not a Bombas, we're not a Nike, right? But the bigger you get, the more influence you have in the manufacturing space. And the reason why that's exciting to me is because when we can take ideas that seem a little far-fetched, but have the partnership and alignment from our manufacturers to do more innovative things. Like right now, they're starting to take us a little bit more. They've always been great to us, took us seriously, but the more manufacturing we do, the bigger of a customer we get, the more we can actually sit at the R&D table and start to think, well, we want to innovate this fabric. And there are some really, really cool innovations that are coming out in merino wool that are happening anyway. I would love to just have that sort of influence to be able to take much bigger ideas and bring them to fruition. So, you know, when we continue to grow, we can get inch closer towards that. So I've seen myself here for a while, really happy. And that's the first time I felt this in a long time. You know, we also have endless products to roll out. We don't even have to make women's clothes yet. That's coming out in January. So there's a lot to do still.
No, clearly you're right in the middle of it. You're definitely not it's not like your video business when you were at the end of the rope there.
No,
do you want to, are you going to stay private or public?
Private as long as we can. I'll tell you another quick story is when we started growing at the beginning, we were growing really, really fast and we couldn't afford to fund our own growth. Like we couldn't get inventory enough fast enough to meet the supply, or to meet the demand rather. And we went to the bank and I said, look, can we get like a line of credit? This is why we need it. And they're like, you haven't even been a business for a year. Like you don't have the financials and the Canadian banking system is very conservative. They won't take risks. So they're like, look, we give you a $20,000 credit card. That's as much as and like, that's not, we can't, we need more.
Right.
So we started thinking we might need to go and get some outside capital and sell off a bit of equity of this thing. And there was definitely no shortage of interest. I had people that were coming to me without me asking, saying, I would love to invest. And I think they saw like it was such an early stage. It would probably be a really good time if we were raising. And we thought, but you know, part of the whole like ethos was like, I wanted freedom for my other business. Like the name Unbound is all about freedom. It's freedom for us. It's freedom for us in the business model. Like we were remote before we had to be remote because we wanted freedom from having to go into our office. Like we set it up so we can optimize for our personal freedom. And that goes all the way through to the product, which is freedom when you travel. You know, it's all about being unbound. So the idea of getting an investor was the opposite, as the antithesis of who we were at our core, with our core values, which is that having that freedom of being unbound. So we were thinking like, we might have to do this, but we don't want to. So our solution was we did a second crowdfunding campaign, and that's where we released the hoodie that's on your, it's on your,
I love it.
It's on your chair there. So when we didn't have a hoodie yet, so we did a second crowdfunding campaign where we did the hoodie, but packaged with other clothing. And then we happened to get the same amount. We got $400,000 in sales again, but that allowed us to circumvent having to go get outside capital to fund our growth. So we dodged that bullet. We've remained private, and our goal is to stay private for as long as we can, forever maybe, because then we can do things our way without having to appease shareholders and things like that.
There's a SPAC craze, and it's a way to take your company public, and there's a lot of money there, but then you're public afterwards. And I've talked to some partners about these different businesses I'm doing, and they're like, we should do SPAC or let's go IPO. And I'm like, guys, then you're going to be a public company. You may as well take a fork and just stick it in your eye. It's the worst. I don't know. I've never run a public business, but from what I know, it's like awful.
Well, I think, this is in the most simplistic thinking about it is, you have shareholders, and then your job then becomes to create value for the shareholders, and the value is the value of their shares. So you start to have to debate whether it's like product quality versus like profitability, and for us, it's like, we will need to be profitable and healthy, but we don't have other people whose only interest is the value of their shares. No, like for us, it's like for us, it's about the product, and we can remain, and we're lean enough that we can remain profitable in that realm, in that box. So you see these public companies, and you see it all the time. Even if there's apparel companies that have gone public, you start to see, however it get there, their product quality over the years starts to diminish. They start to blend in more synthetics, and people start to notice, and the company they once loved becomes different. You wonder why. Well, it's kind of obvious why. Because they're public, they have to answer to their shareholders. But these private companies, like even Patagonia, like, great brand, they're completely private, and people love them. No one says Patagonia, their quality has just really taken a dive over the years. In fact, they stand by their quality. They'll fix your item of clothing 15 years after it's made. Like, they're someone to aspire to for being huge. But I think they call them small giants. There's a book called Small Giants, which was the biggest inspiration for me. It's about circumvent that whole system so that you can continue. You could still be giant in influence, a giant in who your presence as a brand, but you can remain small, and you could do things differently, and you could do things on your own terms without having to appease the shareholders, which I think is a trap a lot of times. That's
amazing. So you're all going on to 5 years now without an investor.
Yeah, we not a dollar of outside money.
That's amazing, Dan. That's great for you. For company ownership, you don't have to share that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's good for that, and it's also good for lifestyle and being unbound.
Right. You don't have to.
Yeah, I don't have a greedy shareholder breathing down my neck.
I know. I'm going to get to it. I know. Yeah. I know. You don't have to take those phone calls.
We're accountable to ourselves, and we're accountable to our customers.
Right.
And we have. We get these reports. I talk to customers on the phone, and that's an amazing experience. But we get these surveys that go out. You've seen these before. Like, how likely are you to recommend this product to a friend? 1 to 10.
Right.
So we send those out, and there's a little section where they can fill out feedback. And sometimes we get the scathing feedback. It's not common, but we do get it. And that stuff, it's like, those are our shareholders. If we make it a customer upset, that's the stuff that we need to look at. It's like, random examples, people in the UK are paying too much duty on importing, which is not our fault,
Right.
But like, we know it's a problem and it's recurring. So we're trying to think of like, how can we solve that for our customers? It's not
Right.
solving it for the greedy shareholder. We're solving it
Right.
for the customer experience. And that's those are people I'm happy to be accountable for the rest of my career.
Yeah. What an awesome perspective to have. Um, and I mean, Dan, you're like a CEO. I mean, you're talking like I guess lecturer at Harvard Business School. You sound like the CEO of Volkswagen or some, Under Armour, a big company. You're just doing it on a much smaller scale. How big is Unbound Merino? Like, how many shirts do you sell a year? What
A cool stat. I just figured this out for our PR company was asking like how many shirts we sold. So I did look back, and
Right.
we sold 100,000 of our t-shirts. So over 100, a little over 100. So that's that's a cool little metric or a little milestone. Yeah. And then selling in over 100 countries was another cool little milestone. I think it was like 107 countries or something.
That's amazing.
Not that we sell a lot in some of these countries.
Right.
Most of this 80% of our customers are in the States, but about 20 to 30 of those countries we've sold a couple orders in, but it's still cool to have spread that far.
It's just something like a crowdfunding campaign and the internet. Imagine if you didn't have either one of those. Well, you probably wouldn't exist.
No, there's no way we would exist. If this you said, you mentioned the year 1984, you were exchange or whatever you were doing. Finland, I was thinking like, if this were 1984 today, 0%, like all of what we brought to this, none of that would have applied in that era. It was a different world of business with a different rule set, and the rule set has been shaken up and people can take advantage of it. And all you need is a laptop. The same way we're having this conversation right now,
don't even need that. You just need one of these.
Yeah. I need this. I need a little bit of a screen. That's my personal preference. But yeah, it's all, you're right though. All you need is a phone. You can run an entire business.
It's amazing. It's amazing how things have changed. And I think if you're going to succeed, one of the things that I've noticed, especially with COVID, right? COVID kind of changed things for some business, some industry sectors. And the people who survive are not the strongest. They're the ones who can adapt the most. And so I think that's a good advice for anybody in any industry, to just step back and say, what is the future going to be? It's been great in the past, but in the future it's going to be different. And really be honest with yourself if you need to adapt, if you need to change, if you need to move into something else. And if you want to start a business, my advice, this is the advice I give to kids and adults about being an astronaut, is don't tell yourself no. If there's some dream you have, if there's some gifts and talents you've been given, you got to go for it. I think you're the poster child for that, right? You're working a full-time job. Your buddy's got kids, and you guys decided to meet on Friday nights to start up a business.
Yeah. And one of the things that helped me along the way is it's almost a cliche, but there's an old saying that you're the average of the 5 people closest to you. I've always made a point to really be mindful of who I surround myself with, and to try to be around people who are ambitious and hold themselves to a high standard,
Right.
And that has been one of the I guess core principles that allowed me to think like, I can do good things. I can make this happen, and I was around people that, one of the motivating factors was I saw people who had nothing create businesses from nothing. And I'm like, they could do it. I could do it. They're not privileged. This guy grew up in the same corner as I did. He's smart, but he's not a genius. Like, it's like regular. Like, I'm a regular dude. I don't think I have what it takes to go to space like you. Like, you're an exceptional human, and you could do unbelievable. But you believe that you could do it, and I think that, as cheesy as it is, its belief is one of the most important things. Because if you don't believe in yourself, you won't be able to inspire the people around you to believe in things, and that's the most important thing.
I love that idea of you're the average of the 5 people closest to you. That's something I try to tell my kids. Like, the friends that you pick are really important. They can drag you down or they can lift you up. And that's I love that. I had not heard that, but it's so true.
Yeah, I've heard it a lot. It's not mine. I forgot where it's from. If you Googled it, you'll find who originally said it. But if someone said like, what piece of advice has meant the most to you, it's that. It's, you know, if I'm around people who don't hold themselves to a high standard and stuff, I'm okay. I'd be friendly with them, but I try to spend more time around people who have drive, are ambitious. They care about things like their health. They care about, you know, reading. They care about the things that help them grow and be better. And the more I'm around that, the more I feel like if I'm lagging, I'm not reading a lot, you know, I feel self-pressure. Like I don't want to be, you know, another way of looking at this is if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
That's exactly. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So I sometimes I'm in like entrepreneur groups where I sometimes feel like the dumbest guy, and I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
I hope that they still want me around, but I'm the dumbest guy here.
No, then you're learning. Then you're getting better. There's a Bible verse that says, "So as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another." And that's a great. I like that. It's the same concept as what you're talking about, though. Yeah. Just using others to challenge you and get better. Very cool. Well, man, Dan, I love this conversation. This is amazing. Very inspiring to see what you've done. I know a lot of people are going to be inspired by that, to know that you can do it. But it's not easy. I always tell kids too, like, you can't just say, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a doctor, or I want to start a business.
We all said we want to be astronauts. How many actually going to do it? You actually did it.
You have to figure out, like, there's step 1 and step 2 and step 3 and step 4. You know, then you got to take a year and a half of Friday nights.
When you were a kid, did you say you wanted to be an astronaut?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Because I think that's one of the things that most kids say. Yeah. It's like it's not a very realistic job for that many people to want to be an astronaut, but like it sure is cool when you're a kid. So it'd be even funnier if you're like, no, I didn't want to be an astronaut. But yeah, like that's the long con. You as a kid, you want to be you look at space, it's cool, and you went the whole path.
I actually got to do it. I'm very lucky, very, very, very lucky for sure. But you know, one of the things I tell people is the harder you work, the luckier you get. And so basically, if you've got a dream, you have, if you want to be honest and true to yourself, you have to pursue it.
So you're done though, right? Like your space missions are over now?
Yeah, I left NASA a few years ago. So I'm
right. So let me ask a question. If space tourism becomes a thing and you have the opportunity to go as a tourist, are you going back?
Never say never. Another lesson I've learned in life: never say never. You know what? When I left NASA, I'm like, you know, I've done everything. I've 7 months plus in space, station commander, shuttle pilot, spacewalks. But I said, if I could make a movie, because I got a chance to make A Beautiful Planet, an IMAX movie based there in Toronto with Tony Myers as my director, who was from Toronto. Unfortunately, she passed away, but I'd love to go back and make a film. So we'll see. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? I think space tourism is going to start happening, you know, maybe this year. I don't think it's too far away.
Because all those kids that said they want to be an astronaut that didn't quite make it like you did, like
they can start Unbound Merino, make a little
they can start. Yeah, maybe make cash. Yeah, that's the back door.
That's the quicker way to do it.
Yeah, that's the back door into space. So
exactly.
You know, hopefully it becomes affordable enough for the average person. Well, maybe not the average, even if it's attainable to someone who's worked hard enough. Like
it is.
I have a friend who's like literally he's a very successful guy in business, and he says the reason why he does business is so that he can go to outer space.
That's amazing. I know how he feels. I understand that. And you know, the Virgin Galactic and Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin, they're the two space tourist companies. And they've been talking about $250,000 a ticket. So that's a lot of money. I don't have an extra $250 laying around, but you know, you can save up $250,000 if you're a middle class American or Canadian or European. You know, you can work hard and save that up. So it won't be for everybody for sure, but it's it'll be for a lot more people than it has been.
More accessible than it's ever been, and that's exciting.
Absolutely, for sure. It's still going to be dangerous. I always tell I have a new book out called How to Astronaut, and one of the chapters is about space tourism. So it's a fun book. It's like a bunch of short chapters about random thoughts about space travel, but one of them is about space tourism.
Did you do an audiobook?
I did, yeah. Read by the author. Check
the
it
whole
out.
way through, not just chapter 1.
I read the whole, it took me a
Good.
week. It's
Good.
like 11 hours of reading. Yeah,
I'm
check
gonna-
it out. It's
It's
How to
going to be on
Astronaut.
it'll be next on my list. One of my pet peeves is when authors do chapter 1 and then it's a little bait and switch. Chapter 2 comes on and then they have a narrator. So
Right.
the worst example of that was the Arnold Schwarzenegger autobiography, because you can't go from his voice to a generic sounding narrator.
Right.
It was just an awful bait and switch. It was so good, and it took me like 4 chapters to get used to this like boring narrator guy, because the story was outstanding.
Right.
But I wanted Arnold to read the whole way through. I'm like, Arnold, like
Of
your
course.
voice is such a big part of who you are. How could you
Exactly?
How can you not?
Yeah.
So I'm glad you read your whole book. I think it makes a big difference.
For me, that was absolutely that was my goal.
Good.
So
It'll be next on my list.
Good. Well, hey, Dan, thank you for coming on today. I know you're busy. You got t-shirts to sell.
Yeah, thank you. It was really cool to spend some time talking with an astronaut. Thanks for listening, and thanks for having me on. It was awesome.
No, this is great. I love the stories of entrepreneurship and people doing cool things to make the world better. So, and thanks for the shirt. I appreciate you sending me the t-shirt. It's awesome. I love it.
You look sharp.
And,
it's your new spacesuit.
These things are amazing. I just wear the same shirt for a week or a couple weeks, and it's not a problem. It's amazing.
Awesome.
All right. Well, hey, we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Terry.
All right. And hey, if you love this podcast, check us out, give us a rating and subscribe. Down to Earth with Terry Virts.